All right, switching gears right now. It's Free Therapy Wednesday. This one is especially for parents. We're going to check in with our friend, child psychologist Dr. Laura Saunders.
Yeah, we're picking up our conversation from last week about how parents can navigate tough topics with teens. And today we're focusing on adolescent substance abuse. Some of the statistics, doctor, are staggering.
Yeah, especially we're talking about marijuana, right?
Yes. Hello, friends. Happy Wednesday. Yes, we are talking about marijuana use because it has really skyrocketed in young people, in part because of legalization. And we sort of knew that would happen. It would trickle down. And it is very, very alarming. In fact, it is a very serious public health problem for teenagers.
I believe it. And I think even though we're sitting there trying to tell our kids, don't do this, don't do that, the idea that they think that there's a belief that marijuana is natural and that even the kids who don't do it say, oh, it wouldn't hurt you. You can't be addicted to marijuana. It's natural. That's not true, right?
Right. And there are so many myths out there related to marijuana and really a lot of substances in general. It can be very emotionally addicting and the body becomes dependent on it. What we know is that it's the THC and CBD are the two most kind of active cannabinoids in it. What we're really concerned about is the THC. That is the psychoactive element of it, what produces the high that people get.
And this says 12% of high school students are addicted. Is that real?
Yeah. I mean, I do, interviews with young people all the time, and I'm continually surprised about young people. 30 years ago, they drank alcohol. Now most of them use marijuana, weed, pot, whatever terms you want to use. And it's gravely concerning because they have a lot of myths around it and they believe that it's harmless.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. We talked about this on another podcast for Karis Cures, but just because it's natural doesn't mean it doesn't cause harm. And this is also not the pot, if you're a parent, that you grew up with. It is so much stronger today, right?
That is a very good point, Kara. Right. It is very, very different than the marijuana from the 70s. It has very, very high levels of the psychoactive component, the THC. So it is very different from the marijuana used in the 70s and 80s, and which is why it becomes more emotionally addicting much quicker.
Do the kids that you talk to give you a reason as to why they are using this amount of marijuana?
Well, they frequently say, oh, there's someone in my family that has a problem with alcohol, so I don't use alcohol, I only smoke weed. And I'm like, it's a substance, right? And I'm not going to go into all the details on how it's metabolized in the body, but the fact that it's metabolized so much slower, right? You can smoke marijuana and then test 2 weeks later positive, so it means it stays in the body and in the brain for a significantly longer period of time.
Well, the brain is what you're most concerned about because teens are now even being hospitalized more. I read an article that more ER visits for marijuana-induced psychosis. Now, I mentioned this to my teens. They're like, no, you can't have psychosis from marijuana. I've never heard of that. I don't think people realize that this is happening.
They don't realize it's happening and that there is more and more research showing that marijuana use in teens and young adults can hasten the pathway to emerging psychosis. It's very serious. They may have had some underlying vulnerability towards that, but it's very serious and it really is something that needs to be talked about openly. Marijuana is not free from any risks. It has just as many risks as any other substance.
To play devil's advocate, there are certain people out there who can benefit from marijuana, but not teens, right?
Right. So, right. Medical marijuana has a good amount of research to show that it can be helpful. And we're talking about adults here, adults who have functioning lives and might have chronic pain or be going through chemotherapy. Yes, there are absolutely uses for medical marijuana. I don't want to denigrate that. But we're talking about teens, people under 25. It affects their brain, it affects their attention and their motivation.
Right, because, I mean, this is what we need to understand. They're not just little adults. Their brain is not fully formed, much like you wouldn't allow a pregnant woman to drink. It's the same. The
Exactly.
teen brain is developing, so it can cause a lot of harm to the developing brain, right?
Absolutely. And it also has to do with frequency of use. So the more frequently you use a substance, the more it's going to affect you, right? Someone, takes an edible or smokes weed, once in a blue moon, I'm not as worried about that. It's the young people that are doing it every night to fall asleep, or they believe it reduces their stress. They don't realize that there's rebound anxiety with marijuana. So there's a lot of negative side effects that teens are not aware of, and they're not addressing it properly.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor.
We're going to take a deeper dive when we have Dr. Saunders on the Care is Cures podcast next week on this. But yeah, it's something parents need to be really aware of. Thank you, Dr. Saunders.
Have a great day.